Welcome to the Non-Sequitur Show. Continual watching beyond this point may result in terminal face palming and a complete loss of wokeness. You have been warned.
Okay, I think we made it. Although I hear some traffic sounds, like somebody's playing in traffic. That's kind of odd. Sorry for the technical delay. We had some, VMix stuff to do. But anyways, we are here. We're ready to go. We have a absolutely, I think, going to be an incredible show today. I really believe this. And by the way, just so somebody does not ask, look, we're not using filters. Okay, we don't use filters here. We don't need filters. Look, we're pretty. We don't need filters. So, yeah, I don't know why people think we're using filters, but we're not. Jim maybe, but yeah. But look at all these pretty people here. So, yeah. Anyways, let's get this started and right off the gate, because I've been looking forward to this kind of discussion for quite some time. I have no doubt it's going to be kind of a dumpster fire. You guys know this. Wait, come on, it's Non-Sequitur Show. What do you expect? But I want it to be kind of at least informative, intelligent, and at the same time, I want you guys to really make forth your argument on this particular topic on what do you all think the whole world should be, Christian or atheist? So, anyways, I want to introduce my co-host, the lovely V. Hello.
Hi, I'm here. If I sound weird, it's because I can currently hear myself, so I'll be working on that in the background, but we do have
the panel. Wait, by the way, can you twirl that? Is that twirlable?
No.
Yeah, it's close enough.
My stash isn't as good as Jim's.
No stash is good as Jim's. And by the way, just so that don't use a filter, watch when I take from the cup. Oh, crap. Hand lash. Oh, 5 people got that joke. All right. So anyways, who do we got, V? Who do we got here today?
I like how I said I can just hear myself and I'm trying to fix it, and you're like, talk more. Thanks.
Oh, you know what's funny is I couldn't hear anything from the intro, and I was like, are we muted? So I listened to the outside. I'm like, oh wait, okay, I can hear it on the outside. All right. So you fixed that. V's going to do her technical stuff because she has to produce at the same time with doing other than 95% of the job, the artwork. And I'm just here along for the ride. I don't know what the hell I do for this show. I have no idea. I show up and V goes, oh, okay, Steve, you showed up. So we have the amazing Craig Reed, Christian extraordinaire, defender of the faith. I don't know, philosophical guru, I guess. Is that a good way to introduce you?
That works. Philosophical, right. King of philosophy. King of all philosophy.
King of philosophy. So your position is? Tell us. So what do you? Am
I just introducing myself, or should I give my little 5-minute spiel right now? Are we doing intros first?
Oh, I think we're doing intros
Yeah.
first.
You know what? Let's do intros first, because that where the
Steve,
panel doesn't have to wait.
can you hear me right now?
So who are you, Craig?
So my name is Craig Reed. I have a Twitter handle I started about 4 or 5 years ago, kind of as a lark. I didn't actually realize there was this much of an active atheist Christian YouTube community. I just kind of went on Twitter and started witnessing and debating with people. And lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, months later, I started a YouTube channel. And then one of the first debates I ever did actually was on the original Non Sequitur against Holy Kool-Aid on a very similar topic on secular utility of religion. Same idea, sort of. And then, I have a YouTube channel. I'm on Twitter a little bit, not that much, not all that much. I put out videos on apologetics, idealism, this topic, all sorts of different stuff. So that's me.
Yeah, I remember that too. And by the way, people thought you were being very stoic. They didn't realize you had a photograph, not a video.
Yes, I'm going to be stoic
like, he's very emotional
too. Jim's
yeah, they're like, he's not very emotional.
And I'm just going to take it. I'm going to be like, wow, I'm really unemotional. Take it all in stride.
I was like, Jim, don't make the poor man cry. Okay. On your team, I guess you can say, because I guess you guys have the same.
One more thing. Let me just
go ahead.
Jimbo and I had a debate. I don't even know if Jim remembers this. We were on Modern Day Debate like 3 or 4 years ago. I tried to find the debate before this and I couldn't find it. I guess he removed it because it was just too intense. I don't know. I can find it. I don't know if Jim did.
You think?
I
take it anymore.
I think it's still around. I can't remember what it was.
I put Craig
why religion is
Jim
harmful
Majors,
or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. It was similar. It was a similar topic. It was fun. And then Jim was on. I interviewed Jim on my channel. That was good too. So there you go.
Well, I was going to introduce SJ next because she was on your team, but since you started talking about Jim, Dr. Jim Majors, PhD, biblical scholar extraordinaire, Hebrew expert, and atheist, Lord of Atheists, I guess he's going by now. I'll introduce him next. Jim Major and my friend, the wonderful, the amazing Dr. Mustache.
Oh,
that's you.
Hi, I'm Jim Majors, Dr. Majors, if you want to get technical. My PhD is in Hebrew Bible. I specialize in the Book of Daniel, and I'm an atheist. I was a Christian for most of my life, and for those who don't know me, hi, and for those who do know me, hi.
And for clarification purposes, you are a proper atheist, as in you actually maintain there is no God, correct?
Yes, he's not atheist.
Yeah, like I said, we have a little bit of lag here because of a latency issue, but he is there. Trust me. I am fixing my camera, so just give me a second here. Okay, and so on your team, Craig, we have Dr. S.J. Thomason,
yes.
PhD, education extraordinaire, biblical expert, and I guess business stuff. You do business stuff, I guess, right? It's the best way to
business.
put it.
Yes, I don't have a PhD or anything related in Bible. I'm not a Bible expert, but I read the Bible. But my PhD is in business management.
Yeah, I use the term.
Hey.
I use the term expert. Kind of hyperbolically, because I mean people claim expertise in a lot of different things when they really kind of don't. But I just crashed.
But you're back.
Am I back? I have no video right now.
The pictures are back.
Oh, weird.
Steve can't hear me.
That's what you get.
I can hear me right now.
Yeah, my video code overheated.
I'm sneaky.
It was the Snapchat filter. My fans are going out on my video card, so it can overheat, and Snapchat overheated it. So I don't have no video right now.
With the
but I'm gonna keep it going. And then I'll come back. But all right, so Cheshire, I have audio, but I have no video displays. So I'm gonna reboot my computer so I can get that back and come on in. If you want to take over for 5 minutes and start the introduction, or not the introduction,
I can
the argumentation, I guess.
Yeah, I can. You guys can hear me right now, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm just gonna do this. You guys can still all hear me right now, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, I fixed my audio problem. Hey, go me. But no, I didn't, because now I can't hear you guys. I fixed nothing.
No one's talking.
That is the answer. Oh well, moving on. So we had a couple of things that we did ahead of time this day. And basically what it is that we did a poll, and we ran that poll, and Steve should have the poll numbers, but he's busy fixing stuff because we've got technical issues today for some reason. But there was some really cool comments that have been left on these polls, and I got a couple of them, and I kind of wanted to hear what your guys' thoughts are, what the chat's thoughts are, and kind of maybe go through them a little bit if you guys are interested.
Sure.
Awesome.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the question is basically if the world was going to be one, which one's better for humanity, Christianity or atheism? And there was no specification about what kind of Christianity nor any kind of specification of what kind of atheism. So a couple of them were kind of interesting. This one was Nebulon. Left a comment that said, I feel like this is a false dichotomy. I don't feel like religious uniformity has that much impact on humanity as a whole. Besides, I feel like if everyone was the same religion or lack thereof, we would naturally splinter into sects based on other beliefs like politics and national identity.
I mean, that's technically probably true. There's a lot of Christians, and we do tend to splinter off into Christian factions and Christian progressive Christians and conservative Christians. And I mean, she's sort of missing the spirit of the question. It's what's better for the world overall, atheism or religion or Christianity. But what she's saying is technically correct. I mean, yes, if Christian were the uniform in Christendom, there were still factions, and there were still like different types of Christians and different political groups. So I agree with what you said.
Yeah, there was a bit in here that I thought was interesting. A lot of people thought that this question was a false dichotomy, which is kind of interesting because it's not saying there is either or. It's a question about it's a would you rather, which is not what constitutes a false dichotomy. So I just thought it was very interesting about how many people thought that it was. I found that bizarre.
Yeah, that was something I noted as well. I was like, wait a minute. A false dichotomy is when there literally are other options, but you're not allowed to even give them when you're trying to make a black and white fallacy. But I wanted somebody's opinion on something, and I say, look, these are the two things are relevant. These are the two things that we care about. We know there's other options. We're not. A fallacy would be say, look, these are the only two options. Either everybody believes there are no gods or Christian. That would be a false dichotomy. Allowing you only have two choices to see which one your preference is not a false dichotomy. Okay, so right. I think that was confusing as well. Yeah. But that poll, by the way, got 535?
Yeah, what were the poll results?
Well, I have them right here. How about I look?
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Do that.
I have one job here to look at the poll results.
Okay,
for the last poll.
Look pretty while you're doing it.
Well, I'm not wearing a filter now. I never was wearing a filter. All right. So, anyways, she could actually show these because she has vMix, but I will tell you instead the vote, which will be better for humanity if everyone was Christian or if everyone was atheist. God does not exist. Yes, on this channel, we go under atheism. God does not exist. You don't like it? I don't care. All right. So, there were 708 votes. V? That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Yeah. Hashtag dead channel.
That is a lot.
That's more than 300.
That's why
more than 200 too.
He knows 708 more than 300. Good job, Jim. We're gonna get Landon on with you. You can teach him some maths. All right, so I'm gonna SJ. How many do you think answered Christian? By the way, this is higher than I thought. Take a while.
Okay, so when I took a peek at it, when it was first, when she first put it out, I think there were 300 votes around that time, and it was something like 80% atheist or something like that. And so I would guess for the Christian, maybe if we're lucky, maybe now it's probably gone down more. So maybe it's 15%.
It's higher than that. It's actually 21%.
That's
your guys'
pretty good.
engineering worked.
That is not
good.
bad, actually.
We're coming in. We're encroaching because that's atheist territory. That's a lot of atheists answer the poll. So we're winning.
Right.
Well,
that's
I mean, this is an atheist channel, right?
Right. Well, I mean, we are a non-belief channel, so I mean, it would make sense that it would be more atheist, but that doesn't seem to be, that. I mean, I thought it'd be bigger. So if it was 21% Christian, there was 79 that said atheist. And again, now even though this was worded this way, and they may not actually hold, we want the whole world to believe there's no gods. This was their preference. So yeah, 79 to 21%. That's.
So Craig, what this means for us is if we look out in the chat right now, probably 1 out of every 5 people in there could be rooting for us. 4 out of 5 are going to be going for.
I'll take those odds. I'll take that out.
You have support. You're not on your own. So V, do
normally
you think Craig should get
Stephanie out of the persecuted church being thrown to the lions?
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's like,
throw to the lions.
They suck. Boo.
Craig.
At least we got one guy likes us.
By the way, did you get the super chat, V?
No,
earlier?
I did not.
Okay. I don't have it, so because I had to reboot. So if you can find
sure
that, that'd be great.
Helios, but I didn't see the amount, and he was saying that he liked the stash.
All right. Thank you, Helios. And Ink Boy, welcome to Recognized Supplicant. So he went up. Thank you. Thank you, Ink Boy. Appreciate it. All right. So Craig, as a person who is
wait, are you moving on before we're done with the comments from the polls?
Oh, you want to do? Oh, we're gonna do comments.
Yeah, I had 3.
Do them.
Okay. Well, I did one. The other one was from Peter Herbert, and they had said on Twitter that after some thought, I regret voting atheist. The parameters are too vague. My ideal world is full of rational people, but most people are not rational. Both options could be terrible. Atheists aren't doing so well right now. Christianity is safer. A unifying belief is more stable and has more room for gradual growth. Atheists have no unifying belief. There will definitely be some rough times ahead. Perhaps over time we don't destroy ourselves. We will become more rational and form more unifying ideas. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah,
That's actually a pretty good comment.
I agree with that comment almost completely. If the choice is binary between a world where there's no religion, atheism, and there's Christianity, Christianity is going to be a lot more of a stabilizing influence and provide more social cohesion. And the underlying predicate, this is what Peterson used to argue with Sam Harris, that if everybody's atheist, they automatically become more rational by definition. That's like ludicrous.
We know that's not. We definitely know that is not true.
Go ahead, Jim.
It's a good comment. I don't agree with
Steve,
it.
shut up. Jim, go ahead.
Lag.
There's lag.
I think that's a completely ridiculous claim. I mean, you don't see atheists anywhere in history killing other atheists because they're atheisting wrong.
Correct.
Well, we do see atheists. I mean, if we look into just modern society right now, if you look at the leadership in some countries, you can make a pretty good argument that atheism did not do well in Cambodia under Pol Pot. It didn't do well in Russia under Stalin or Lenin or any of the other ones, Khrushchev.
It didn't do well.
And it definitely did not do well currently in China. Well, 120 million people died, many of starvation, due to
because of atheism
policies. A lot of Christians, they were gunning down Christians. So we've got a lot of evidence of that in Solzhenitsyn's book, for example. And so, but you can say today,
was it because of atheism? Was it in the name of atheism? Was it because they were atheists that they did this?
It's because yes, a lot of it is. If you think that you're going to have no one's going to judge you morally for the kind of decisions that you make, you don't have a moral lawgiver, you don't have an authority over you. A lot of times people might make decisions to the detriment of other humans.
But that doesn't follow actually. Well, where do you see where there are no consequences after this? I can do whatever I want because I'm an atheist.
I think that's part of the philosophy.
Embedded, that's just
no, it's not at all. There's no philosophy. Atheist is just the non-belief in a God.
Right. Well, but the non-belief in a God implies that there is complete libertine moral freedom on earth unless you decide that you need to reinvent some type of moral order or moral structure. That's what
exactly.
That's
we have.
Real quick,
we have done that. We can't agree on a moral code. I mean, look at the laws today. You know, they're not all Christian laws, so to speak. I have no problem obeying those laws.
Right, but that's not what she meant. If there's no intrinsic moral purpose to life, then that's the famous Dostoevsky quote. If there is no God,
then anything goes. That's like what
there doesn't need to be anything intrinsic in order for there to be something.
Well, is it necessarily anything goes if there's still a society? Because that's not how society's functioning. So even if there was no overarching deity, societies still have rules they have to be a society in the first place.
Yes.
Yeah. If you're an atheist, right? And by the way, Jim, how quickly you fall back in lackthiesm, by the way. Atheism and non-belief. Quickly, I'm so disappointed in you. You've come so far, but anyways, so atheists though.
I mean, as blanket. I mean, it's just covering everybody.
You're forgiven. You're forgiven. So you're blessed. So as V pointed out, though, SJ, and I really want you to address this because regardless of any kind of punishment afterwards, right? Atheists can still say, look, I don't want to be a horrible human being. I know there's ramifications for my actions. I know there's consequences legally. And even if there weren't, I wouldn't do these things necessarily anyways because I don't do it merely because there's a law against it. I do it because I just don't think it's the right thing to do. If there was no law against murder, I still would not be out murdering people. It's just something that I just would not want to do, right? So what is it that you think that an atheist would say?
I mean...
Yeah, so go ahead, Jim. Finish that line of thought. I mean, seriously. Oh, we got a super chat, but finish that line of thought, and then we'll do the super chat.
Go ahead.
Okay, super chat. Manya, New Zealand, $10. Helios for $5 says, "God darn it, Chess, take this money and absolutely breaking me with that stash." Also, RFOL. Steve's listening skills accidentally trolling Chesh. Inkboy became a recognized supplicant. Yay. Okay. But yeah, take that, Jim. I mean, honestly, why is it that a Christian would think that an atheist merely has to worry about metaphysical ramifications rather than what happens while they're on Earth, just because they might not want to do harmful things because they're a good person?
Yeah, I mean,
can I answer?
I would argue
Jim can answer.
I would argue that our time on Earth is more important to atheists than it is to Christians, because Christians are worried about, the life after, the eternity after, that this is just temporary to them. So I would argue that what we do here, we get punished for here, we get judged for here, not in the hereafter, and that there is nothing after this. So I would argue that it would incentivize people to want to be good, to want to have a cohesive society that agrees on a moral set of principles that are good for everybody.
Yeah, I happen to agree with that. SJ, what about you? You don't think that a cohesive society shouldn't have certain things that they agree upon as far as laws? And atheists would go, yeah. I mean, it's mostly when we have mostly civil laws, they're not based upon Bible things. They're based upon civil code from just societal. I mean, if I get a traffic ticket, is there anything like that that's in the Bible of don't speed? No, it's a regulatory thing that we have because it's a safety thing. And so society's determined this is the highest speed you can go on this particular freeway. That's a legal thing. But would an atheist go, hey, I'm going to go, run down people and start doing what's that, Death Race 2000 if there's no laws against it? I don't think that they would. Do you?
Well, it depends on the person. I mean, obviously, it's somewhat subjective. Some people could and would, and some are in. We find history that some have done that. They've acted that way. We've seen people like Peter Hitchens, who's Christopher Hitchens'
some people
brother.
have a moral compass, even if they're not.
Some Christians have done that too.
But
Christians,
I agree. No, I can.
Yeah.
Well,
but wait,
sorry.
everybody. Let me just point something out.
Go ahead.
Sorry, the lag. Go ahead.
Let me just point something out. I definitely think that there are many atheists who live very moral lives. Okay, so I want to get that off the plate. I'm not making the assertion. I'm not trying to suggest that you can't be a moral atheist, and I'm not trying to suggest you can't be a good parent and you can't be a good person. I definitely have found some. I've got agnostics in my family who are definitely great people, and I really can't figure out why they're agnostics, but they do a lot of the right things. They're not out there trying to sin, and they're not out there trying to hurt their neighbors or anything like that, but they just happen to be agnostic. And so, but the reason I'm pointing that out is that, but there are, when you don't have a code that's guided by something that speaks to your ultimate morality, your ultimate meaning, what explains our purpose, what explains our origin, what explains why we're here and why we have to suffer so much. The best explanation for that comes from Jesus Christ. And so if I look at Jesus as the example that we can all live by, if everybody lived like Jesus or tried to be like Jesus at least, we'd have a pretty good society. We have a very heavenly society.
C.S. Lewis said in Reflections on the Psalms, he said, of all the bad men, religious bad men are the worst.
And Jesus called out some of the Pharisees for that same reason.
But don't you think it's a generalization to say that? I mean, it's a generalization to say that, look, just because if everybody was Christian, they're going to still do God's wants. I mean, that we've known historically that many crimes are committed by Christians, many atrocities are committed. So I mean, well, I don't think. Go ahead.
My original point was something different than where this has gone. Originally, the underlying predicate of a huge chunk of the atheist community is that religion is intrinsically harmful. And if you strip religion away, people are going to be rational and do good and be reasonable automatically. And I think that.
No, I don't. I disagree with that. I disagree with that. I don't think that that's the claim. I don't think that the claim is that atheism prevents you from being irrational or from harming people. Which is more harmful.
Has literally argued that it's religion that is standing in the way of perfecting society. I think religion is ultimately a civilizing influence. Let me just finish the point. Whether you believe in the metaphysics or not, I think religion is ultimately, particularly Christianity, a civilizing influence that provides social cohesion and gives people at least some solid justifications for moral behavior. Now, of course, people don't automatically do what the religion, like people aren't Christ-like who go to church automatically, but part of what Stephanie was arguing is correct, if people did internalize at least the message of the Bible to be like more merciful, more compassionate, more long-suffering and patient, then it would be a better world. But regardless, is that if you strip away religious belief, people don't just automatically act good. They act just as bad, if not worse. Which are worse, I don't know. Go ahead.
I think it's a little bit fair if you're going to say that, oh, which one is going to be perfect? Because I don't think either is going to be perfect.
Right.
I don't think anybody would ever argue that atheism is going to make the perfect world. The question is which one's more harmful? It doesn't even make the winner or whatever necessarily the best option. It just makes it better than the other, right? So
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let's get the super chats. Digital Davro. I saw you put him on the screen, but let's read them. Digital Demonic Davros, 5 Australian. So not believing in, quote, your God means I have no ethics or morals to which my life own to live my own life to. Worst misnomer ever, poor form. I'm not quite sure that's what Stephanie's saying, but I think
no, that's exactly the opposite of what I said.
Yeah, I don't think that's what Stephanie's saying, because Stephanie has said that atheists can still have morality, but she's, if I'm not mistaken, she believes that the only way you can have morality is if there's some kind of moral being, whether you recognize that or not. That moral being is the reason why morals even exist. And then so the atheist can be moral, but they still need that God. Without that God, there would be no such thing as morality. Is that your position, Steph?
Kind of, but let me just kind of here's what my position is. Atheists, everybody has a conscience. My position is God gave us all a conscience, and that's shown in Romans 2:15. That's my belief. So I believe that everybody acts accordingly. Talk about the person who seared the conscience. And so we have psychopaths who, they know the difference from right from wrong. One study found they just don't care. But beyond that, beyond the psychopath, and that's about 1% of the world, beyond that, what I'm trying to say is that people can be very moral. The source of our objective moral duties, though, is a moral lawgiver. And the lawgiver has to be transcendent because the moral duties are transcendent to cultures, peoples, and eras. And so if that's transcendent, the source of the law that gives us the law that makes us feel like, hey, we have to do the right thing, it has to come from a transcendent source, and that's consistent with God.
All right. Second best, Bob, 5 pounds. I'm in the UK. It's late. I must sleep. I'll catch up tomorrow. Nice to have non-sec back. Thank you, second best, Bob.
Yeah, awesome.
I think was that the last one? I think so.
Yeah, that was.
I go ahead, V. What you got for them?
Oh well, I mean, there's a whole. We've already started. We've already been going. So should we just let people? SJ has now given her position. Should we let Craig go and then Jim go?
Let's do that, because I really want to hear Jim's on this, because this whole moral argument from God, if all the people in the world were Christians and there's a morality to follow, and I agree with Jim, by the way, atheism is not going around saying these are the morals you should follow. That would be humanism, right? Or secular humanism or humanism. That's a wholly different philosophy. We're not.
Yeah, because nothing says that. Right. So something that's interesting is that what comment did I read? I read out about Peter Herbert saying that there's no unifying belief in atheism, or unifying thing in atheism. But if you were to remove Christianity, because these are the only two options right now that we're playing with. If you were to say, let's not do Christianity, let's do atheism instead, and atheism, in removing that, said, okay, well, why don't we just use what's best moving forward as a society? It would naturally, I assume, would lead to humanism. And if that's the case, then atheism would be the better option, because you wouldn't have this inconsistent, let alone Christianity in its different kinds, but also having these kind of discussions about, well, what did God say was okay? And what did God say wasn't okay? Was murder okay this time, or was it not okay this other time? So you wouldn't have those kinds of discussions.
Craig?
Craig, sorry, go ahead. Give your...
my turn? I thought it was... I thought you were going to let Jim do his spiel.
We're going to do... Because you and SJ are on the same side. We did SJ,
okay.
we'll do
so
you,
what you just said... so what you just said, Cheshire, is very similar to the arguments I was going to make. Atheism, most people will tell you, atheism isn't a world ordering system. It's just a stance towards a certain proposition: God exists. So there is no morals associated. There's nothing intrinsic to it. Now that's, in a sense, that's one of the benefits, but that's also one of the downfalls, because there is no organizing principle under which people, if there is no God,
for sure, absolutely, I would agree with that.
Right, there is no organizing principle under which people would join a specific banner if the whole world became atheist. Now, what you said is exactly the argument I was going to make. You would need to create a form of secular humanism that people adhered to, and you'd need some type of enforcement mechanism. I don't know what exactly that would be, wherein people would adopt values that are beneficial to others in society. What I believe, I had like a secular humanist on my channel who's doing that. He has this type of secular humanistic religion. Most of the stuff that they believe and that they try to practice out is very, 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 very similar to Christianity light. It's not that different at all. Some of the intrinsic moral things that they think are the right way to act are very similar to, Christian teaching in
for sure, yeah. If Christianity was the worst of the worst, it wouldn't have survived as long as it has.
Right, and the reason it survived is because the social
really?
cohesion.
You don't think so?
I don't.
And it would just be like, if it was like murder's fine, then they'd be murdering their members, and it would be fine.
Right. If there were no sociological benefits whatsoever, if there is no God and there's no sociological benefits to Christianity, which disappeared 5,000 years ago or 200 years ago or whatever, but the sociological, we're not really talking about the metaphysics. We're talking about the secular utility and the sociological benefits. And I think that they're really important. They provide social cohesion, and they give a set, when they're taught properly, they give a set of normal and easy to understand values and ethics that would be largely similar to a type of secular humanism that Cheshire was talking about. So it'd be sort of the same thing. Cheshire and I are kind of saying the same thing. Like, I agree with her.
Okay, Jim. So Craig makes a good point of that. Hang on. So look at Jim. So Jim, he makes a good point of this. And we're talking hypothetical conditions. Okay, we're talking perfection of society as far as if Christianity everybody was Christian, right? And Christian does have these specific type of things to live by, right? Golden rule: do unto others as others do unto you. Moral code and whatever. If everybody did adhere to that, what would be your argument to say, well, I would rather have a society who believes there are no gods, and then it developed later on secular humanism. But we're not going that far. We're not saying, hey, look, we're not talking about secular humanism. We're talking about atheism as just a belief. Why would you prefer everybody to believe there is no God, as opposed to what they're arguing? Hey, there's a God, we believe in them, and these are the laws that we have, and everybody abides by that. It would be a nice, harmonious, universal world, hypothetically.
Yeah.
But you're not. Those aren't that doesn't outline the full teachings of Christianity. The central doctrine, the backbone of Christianity, hinges on 3 points: that you're not enough, you'll never be enough; you're not good, you'll never be good; you're not worthy of love, you'll never be worthy of love; and that God alone is enough, that God alone is good and worthy of love. Like in Christianity, it's virtually impossible for you to be a confident human being with any semblance of self-worth or intrinsic value, because a Christian's entire identity is based on the idea that you can only have value by the grace that God has for you if you are a Christian, that there is no hope or purpose outside of Christianity. And people who still give every effort to be a Christian but still feel like that they didn't meet the mark, they're doomed to a fear of hell, whether they're going against a certain doctrine or not. And there's just this feeling of being insufficient or not being able to meet a standard. That's harmful. Like, there's no greater feeling of like just angst and suffering than feeling like you can never be good enough on your own. But in a secular world, failing isn't the end of the world. It doesn't mean that you're intrinsically incapable of ever making it, so to speak. Like, when I fall short of something, I find that it's more fulfilling to work better each day and to do better for myself and make myself better, and then finally succeeding, rather than just giving up because I don't believe that I'll ever get there, no matter how hard I try.
What do you think about that, Stephanie? Because yeah, please, because I mean, Jim's making some good points here.
Well, I don't agree with your take, Jim, on exactly how you put Christianity. I want to say that there's definitely, I think that God does say we do have value.
Shocker, she doesn't agree.
God does say we do have value. Jesus came down here to show us to manifest God in the flesh, to show us how much love he has for us and how deserving we are of his love. We're very deserving of his love. He created us, he loves us, and we're his children. And so that's the bottom line. And then there's the difference between, say, works-based beliefs and faith-based beliefs. And the nice thing about Christianity is Jesus did the work for us. All we have to do is accept his offer. And so it's a good deal. All of the other faiths basically usually have works-based, like the Muslim faith and the Hindu faith and the Buddhist faith, the ones who believe in reincarnation. But we believe in the idea that Jesus did all the work for us. And the other thing, just to point out, that I think that if we got rid of,
do that?
Why did he do that? Because he wanted to reconcile God's perfect mercy with God's perfect justice.
Because you couldn't get it. Because you couldn't get it without it. You couldn't get God's mercy without
it. We're with sin.
But it's not vested
Absolutely.
The Bible even says there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus.
But that's not what he's saying. Jim is arguing and saying that in the Christian faith, you are set up to already not be good enough to be in with God, because that was the whole deal with
you cannot make it yourself. You cannot do it yourself.
You can't do it yourself. Yes. You're not good enough on your own, and therefore Jesus came to do that. So from your description, Jim agrees and you agree about the same kind of situation. You're just saying that, well, down the line, Jesus went out of his way to make it so you could be good enough.
Okay, there's a difference in tone there. Stephanie is saying, and I'm saying Jesus is perfect, and I'm saying I'm not perfect. I can be reconciled unto perfection by admitting my imperfection.
It still means you're not perfect and you're not good enough on your own.
You're never going to be good enough. You're bound for hell. Now, there are Christians who preach and believe that, but that's not me, and that's how I experience Christianity.
But Craig, that's an
I don't doubt that that's how he believes it.
That's part of the Christian doctrine.
That's Christian, right? I mean, Craig, if you were a parent and all you did was tell your children, "Hey, look, you're not good enough. You're not good enough. You cannot be good enough unless you do this." What your parents says, which is believe in the parents. Say, parents say, "Hey, look, you're a terrible child. You sin. You're a horrible, horrible child. And the only way you can ever get reconciliation with me is if you believe in me." That's a bad parent. So how is God any different? Because always asking, But what is God asking for, Steph? What is God asking for to say, look, you're fallible, and there's a reconciliation that needs to be had for whatever reason. I mean, he set up the rules,
right?
But what is so important about this belief concept that you have faith in some deity, which, by the way, again, is as we all hold here, is propositional. It's not even we're not even talking about psychological. We're just
before you answer, SJ, real quick. I'm gonna lose my mind if we go down this route where a Christian comes in and tells me that I'm good enough to get to God without Jesus. I'm gonna lose it.
That would be awesome.
That would be amazing.
Yes.
I would lose my mind.
You'll probably get some. You just have to go find a progressive Christian. They'll tell you that.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I have had. I
don't think you're gonna go to hell, Joshua. You seem like a nice person.
I have had Dr. Rhodes tell me that he believes that I'm good to go. I'm going to be saved, probably because he wouldn't want some deity to send me to hell. But the way they're looking at Jesus is that Jesus, you still need Jesus, but
God sent Craig to vouch for me instead of Jesus.
Exactly.
But you don't have to actively have you don't have to actively have a belief in him. So So you guys may diverge here a little bit, but SJ, what did you think so important about Jim or myself going, because we were both non-believers, and we say, hey, look, yes, we really believe God exists. What all of a sudden magically happens where we go, and we're saved according to God? What is so important to God that there's a belief structure there as opposed to maybe, like you said, works? Doing something to make people better, to make humanity better, to me, is more effective than going, I believe in God, I'm saved, rather than people that are spending their entire lives doing good. To me, work seems more important to me personally. I mean, how would you argue
a lot of it? If you look at the idea of belief versus trust, I think a lot of it really has to do with the idea of faith, belief, and trust. I think they all go together. And so trusting in God is just realizing realizing that despite the fact that we're going to all suffer, there's going to be tribulations. Jesus promised that. We're all going to suffer, and we just have to remember at the end of the day just to trust in God, put our faith and trust and belief in God, because he will make sure that it all comes together according to his plan.
Color me not if somebody's saying life sucks, then you die.
Yeah.
Well, I look at, for example, I'll give you an example.
At least you die at the end.
No, it's like right now.
Why
Yesterday,
even-
now let me just say, yesterday my husband's 87-year-old aunt passed away, and unfortunately, this is right before the wedding of her granddaughter that's going to happen next weekend. And so it's just a really hard time for the family to try to have this joy from the marriage, and then unfortunately, this very traumatic event. And my mom was in the hospital for a week. Now she's in full-time rehabilitation. They said if this doesn't work, they're going to have to put her into hospice. And so that kind of situation, I look to the hope and the trust that I have in God to help me get through that kind of stuff. And I think that's one of the reasons that Christianity has value. At funerals, Christianity has a lot of value because it not only because it's the truth, it is the truth, but also because we have hope and faith in God to be able to get through all of those really traumatic events.
And I'm sorry for your loss, but I have to ask as a follow-up on that, though, what happens if the person was like an anti-Christian, somebody who like literally rejects God, and they're going to hell at the funeral? Then what do? Where's the comfort there?
That's a tough one because I actually was at a funeral like that, so that was really tough.
Yeah,
that's kind of
right. It is a hard question.
That's kind of like saying that there's no way. That's kind of like saying that there's no way to get over a fear of being in the dark than having a nightlight. That's the only way that you can not be scared of the dark. And without a nightlight, there's just going to be this fear, and you just can't be comforted.
I actually like nightlights.
I think
I'm not afraid of the dark. I'm scared to death. What's
I do.
I think maybe
I've seen those movies.
I think maybe we're talking about two different questions. What if Christianity was removed entirely throughout history versus what if we removed it now? I think if we just removed it, that would be incredibly traumatic for a lot of people. That would be horrible and an awful idea. We should not do that. That's terrible.
Yeah, I agree with that. If there was a button to push to remove all religion, that would be very bad to push society-wise.
But if you were taking it as in like, oh, it just slowly disappears over time, people will have replaced whatever coping mechanisms they need to replace with whatever coping mechanisms.
That's potentially true. There's a maybe on that. Like when I put up my video, that was
they could still be wrong, by the way. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. But they might replace the coping mechanism of Jesus or God, like SJ was describing with the funeral, but whether they're right or wrong is irrelevant because they're going to replace that comfort with something else no matter what.
Well, one of the precursor video I put out to this was I got a couple of comments in the common anti-theist objections, like in Holland, Denmark, wherever. Those are mostly secular societies and everything functions fine and they're actually doing better. Those societies emerged out of Christianity, though, and it's really too early to tell what happens to a society en masse when we remove the social cohesion that religion provides. Any religion, even Islam versus not Islam, I've argued, if you go look at African countries where there's a breakdown of religion, it provides structure and boundaries for people, and it gives people meaning and purpose in their day-to-day life. Now, it's possible, like Chess was just saying, that as you deconvert from Christianity, you can find a replacement like secular religion or secular religious, almost religion type of thing. If it were moral and good and it had good results on people, I'd be all for it. I'd have no objection to that. I think that'd actually be positive. And I think there's even some secular people who are working on a combination Christianity, secular type of value structure. People need a value structure. They need something to believe in. Christianity, I'm not sure if everybody really needs the hope in death, because a lot of people just avoid the idea that they're going to die. If you're 25 years old, it's not even like present in your mind that that's really going to happen. It's not until you get my age and you're like, oh snap,
is the belief that Jesus died for our sins necessary to have a moral society?
That's a really weird theological part of it. I don't think that's what Christianity provides with the social cohesion. I don't think that's the shared value. That's a really fine
Christianity is a theology.
What? Yeah, I understand that, but that's not exactly what we're talking about in this discussion. We're talking about it as a social utility, as a practical means of social cohesion. I don't think I don't know
but
if the salvation question is so necessary to that. I don't think so. I think it's more about the followed, like the Paul said, imitate me as I imitate Christ. And then everybody sort of understands to be a loving, compassionate, moral person.
Except they
and
don't.
try to work out. Yeah.
okay,
well,
but so
I didn't say people were
so
following.
They
then,
don't.
so
Sorry.
then it's not Christianity that does it. Then it is the cohesive belief that we should treat each other the way that we would want to be treated.
Perhaps. I'm perfectly willing. That's why I said if you could replace it with a secular thing with the same values, and I saw that it had really good results, I'd be all for it. Then my Christian belief, my belief in God would just be something I practice privately, which is pretty much what I almost do anyway.
Well,
I make a video once a week. I don't go around preaching on doorsteps and like telling people they're going to hell if they don't follow me. If they had money, I would. But
You're not intrusive.
So yeah.
Well, I mean, now
totally
there's
agree with
a
you.
difference. Like if we were talking about if everybody should be atheist or everybody should be Craig, you know, I might think everybody should be Craig. You know what I'm saying? You know, but
what you could do, Jim, you could argue something along. I would argue around those lines. Is that, hey, look, if everybody came to the conclusion there are no gods, I think that something like secular humanism would develop naturally because of societal impacts. Something similar to that philosophy must exist, I think, at some certain time as far as to keep a cohesion of society. This is why we have a humanistic type philosophy, right? And there's a lot of things about humanism I do agree with. I think that it is a very cohesive, very well-stated philosophy. William Peters says for $5, what about the fact that religion creates an expectation / need of an afterlife in the first place, then sells it as a necessary hope? And this is a take on, the old adage that, religion sells you the cure for a disease that they create, kind of thing. So SJ, I mean, if the religious people out there, the Christians are going to say, look, this is what's happening. You are removed from God. You need God in your life. You need to recognize it. You need to faith in him and believe in him and worship him. Well, you don't believe in, I guess, worship because you don't need that to be saved. But if you believe in him, we're telling you what you need to do for something we've already set up. It's not the atheist going, hey, look, everybody needs to get saved, and this is how you do it. It's the Christian saying, this is what we think it is, and this is how you go about being saved. So it is setting up something and have an expectation of how to survive in the afterlife, if there's such a thing, and then says, here's how you do it, and then believe us. Come to our churches. Give us our donations. Can you see it from an atheist point where they're like, yeah, you're kind of are selling what you're, this thing, and then saying, hey, look, here's the disease, here's the cure. It's an old adage, and you know me, look, I'm fair. A lot of atheist adages are crap. That one might have a little merit. What do you think?
But actually, Steve, you'll be surprised about this. I agree with you that God does set things up so that we realize what's going on. And I mean, look at the Old Testament. Look what happens. So you first have Jacob over there, and suddenly he gets, was it Jacob? Oh, wait, is the son, Craig, which one is it again? The multicolored robe, the one who was, the brothers sold him into slavery.
Joseph and the Technicolor
Joseph.
I'm Mormon. So I was Mormon. I knew that's one, because
I know. I get Jacob and those names mixed up all the time. So Joseph was sold into slavery. He goes into Egypt. He ends up foretelling a dream, and they end up eventually. What happens is Egypt experiences all kinds of plagues, and actually before that, he experienced a number of different things where the crops weren't blossoming, but Joseph had predicted that they needed to save the crops. And so what ends up happening hundreds of years later is suddenly all of these Israelites had to come to Egypt to get food because they had stored food under Joseph. So they all come to Egypt. And then God leads them out. And so you see, God did plan that. And it might sound like something that it's all through the Old Testament. A lot of these trials and tribulations, God had that in store for them to grow their souls in certain ways.
Mine for $2 New Zealand says hashtag be like Jim LMFAO. I agree with that. It's be like Jim's mustache.
Don't be like Jim.
Be like Jim's mustache.
Yeah,
I have.
My mom was like, everyone should don the stash.
Jim,
I have
met you in person.
That I can agree with.
I have met you in person. Everybody should party like you, bro.
No.
He doesn't.
I think there was
He,
another
he
super
does.
chat, Steve.
He doesn't
Did you get that
remember
one?
that night. He doesn't even remember that night. That's how much
Good.
fun
That
we
means it was
had.
a good night.
Yes. It was a good night.
Where'd you meet? Was it
so
Faithless
much.
Forum?
Hey, can we not
Where'd
get
you guys
into
meet?
that?
No.
I'm not allowed
we
at
met-
Faithless Forum. Are you
We
kidding
met in
me?
Dallas, but
You won't let me go there.
he's like, where did I put my stuff? Where's this? Where's that? He must have had to buy a whole new. Where's my truck? Did you find your truck?
Where's my car?
No, I knew exactly where
Where's
that
my car, dude?
Where did I put my truck? I got to drive home nights. Wow. That's scary.
It
Where's
was
my
fun.
truck?
It
I
was
got to
fun.
drive home. I can't remember where. I put my truck.
Where's my city, man?
Oh, no,
What
I didn't
state am I
drive.
in? No, you didn't drive. No.
Oh
we
no,
made
I
sure of that.
definitely
Anyways,
didn't drive.
yeah. But anyways, so so where we're at
There
on
was
this
another
is that
super chat, Steve.
yeah.
It's right here.
Yes, super chat.
William Peterson for 5.
I did read that one. That was with the hope thing. That was with the
okay,
selling the
sorry
disease
about
and the cure.
Never mind then. Ignore
Yeah.
me. I have a question for the panel.
Uh-oh. Wasn't me.
Look at her little angel thing on the top, little halo. I have a question, but she asked a question. I think of this little horn.
Okay, hold on. I'll fix it for you.
Yeah, I can't.
funny.
I can't run mine because my fans went out on my video card.
Okay,
Both fans went
I
out.
got a
and
question
so
for
I
Oh,
didn't-
there you go.
Okay,
She actually has that too.
let's assume Christianity is correct. Let's just assume that. But
Yes.
we're going to shift things a little bit and say God provides a moral code in all of us. Jesus came, did his shtick. If we believe in him, we go to heaven. Cool, great. That stands. Why do we need Christianity, the religion? If we all have a moral code, we could all be atheists and all still have that moral code ingrained either way. And we would not have like the religious institution that is Christianity.
So are you saying you would like to not have, say, churches, organized religion? Is that the problem?
Sure. So
I'm
yeah,
just
basically
wondering.
what I'm saying is that why would we need Christianity, the organized religion, as it is?
Pray at home.
If the question you're asking or trying to propose is that we can't be moral without God or without like the Christian version. So if the Christian God exists, as is stated by both of you, then why do we need Christianity as the constitution that it is, since even if everybody was atheist, because whether we believe God or not, we still have that ingrained God-given moral compass.
Well, it's interesting. That's what the Bible actually argues about. People who don't believe that they prove that that it's from God because they do naturally, like there are decent human beings who do naturally decent things who aren't who aren't Christian. They're atheists or they're Buddhists or whatever, and they're good people just intrinsically. And the Bible argues that that is coming from God. I think we need a moral code because we need to function. We need a functioning society. Like I said, you could replace it with secular humanism if that secular humanism was functioning and addressed the problems correctly and was more practical, and I saw its benefits in the group of people, I'd be down with it. I'd be like,
that
yeah, those
sounds
guys
to
are
me
good.
then like the Christians would argue for atheism because it would remove some of the dogmatic, problematic things that you get with organized religion inherently. Because people are going to be moral either way because you believe that people are going to be innately moral. So whether they believe in God or not, they're going to be innately moral. The only thing that Christianity, their religion, is changing is whether or not those people are actually going to heaven or not, which to make a better world is not necessarily, that doesn't matter.
Right. I think it's a question of the church.
History tells us that. I mean, history tells us that. We can look at history and see that Christianity is not concerned with improving life here, improving the life for everybody here. They're, for the vast majority of Christianity, the main goal has been to get everybody to think the same way.
I think one of the things is questioning whether or not the church has any value, because I look at church, there's all these different denominations, obviously. And so does the church have value, or do we need the church? I think that's what she's sort of getting at. But let me just say...
Well, it's a matter of, like,
if
you're deciding whether or not Christianity, right? As, like, a
but it's...
as it is.
The question is, you're talking about, I think it's about whether the organized version of Christianity, the idea that you're going to go in a community, you're going to go worship on Sundays, you're going to listen to the Bible, listen to the pastor, and go home and feel edified and worship, sing, praise, all that kind of stuff. The question is, does that have value? And I think it definitely has value in some churches. And the studies show that. The studies show that going to church does benefit people.
But at the same time, when you have those organized, aren't those most likely the ones being corrupted? Because we've seen so much corruption in organized religion.
Some are.
I mean, nobody, I think, in the right mind would disagree that there are not huge amounts of corruptions in even local organized religion.
Having a Bible study, you don't need to have the organization.
Yeah,
Christianity currently has.
Originally,
atheism isn't an organization, but I mean it. So I mean,
no, but there are organized organizations.
Those are political groups, though, not religious.
But there is no Christianity without the church. You know, the Christianity is the church. The church is Christianity. I mean, the bride of Christ is the church. I mean,
yeah. So what I'm saying is that if you were to, because the question we're asking is which is going to be better. If Christianity is true, then picking atheism makes the most sense, because all you'd be removing, you wouldn't be removing God, you wouldn't be removing morals, you would be adding morals in, because the atheist would be moral either way because it's God-given, and the only thing you would be removing would be the organized religion part of the Christianity.
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense to have atheism. Atheism is non-belief in God, so you can't say that you're going to have God and then not have God.
No, I'm saying that God exists.
God exists, just nobody believes in him. But God is putting
again, hang on. No, you're changing. Remember, we said that everybody has the belief as atheism that God does not exist, right? We're not going to non-belief. I want it to be positive for a specific reason.
The atheist belief that God does
because
not
that leads to
exist
other beliefs.
Doesn't mean whether or not God actually does exist.
Of course.
So if we go down the line of saying, like, as a Christian, you would say that, well, God exists either way, independent of whether or not people believe in him. So the only thing the Christian loses in making a world that is atheist and removing Christianity is the organization part. And as we already all agreed, humans would just build another coping mechanism. So when it comes to like, is the church good for social situations, that's fine. I'm not even going to disagree with that. And some yes, and some no. But they would just find another thing to replace that as necessary.
Yeah, because if God does exist, you're not stripping away anything. If everybody says, "Look, God doesn't exist. You don't exist up there, but he still exists up there," there would still be these morals supposedly. Right. So nothing could really change except that down here on Earth, he wouldn't get the worship. He wouldn't have the organization. He wouldn't have the things that he wants for whatever reason for people to believe in him. But the morals would still exist. And as I think we've articulated, that we would progress in society to have probably very similar rules that the Christian would have. So what are you giving up? Maybe the organized religion. Virillion for 5 Australian says, for SJ and Craig, you start with the starting point of atheism at day 0, but forget that Christianity had 4,000 years to develop their thoughts on that, which we'll get back to. Yeah, I promise. But
what he was just saying is that atheism has just gotten started, more or less, and Christianity has had 2,000 years or so to develop. And I'm assuming he thinks that atheism will start to work to produce a better secular world, talking about that sort of secular humanism that Cheshire, maybe 500 years from now, there will be such thing as a secular society that's ordered properly. And even what Chester's saying, yeah, God exists, but nobody believes in him, but everything's fine because God's moral code is operating in society.
Right, exactly. You've nailed her argument, yeah.
How do I get my time? Who gives me the time?
As soon as atheism stops being denigrated and people stop being, ostracized for being atheist, and that open thought is encouraged, then maybe there will be a society, but that population has to grow.
I think that's really local areas that have that particular problem. I think look, we see that it's
fair to say where Jim is from is very informative, right? Because where Jim lives is very much Bible Belty and very much oppressive compared to other countries.
But would you guys say that we've seen religiosity on the decline? You're breaking up, by the way, pretty bad. Craig. Would you guys say we're seeing religiosity on the decline? We are seeing things like younger creationism on the decline. We're seeing more
yes and no, and it depends on where you look.
I would say so.
No, overall. We're not talking about local pack, but overall.
Overall, if we look at the Pew polls, we are seeing in Western societies there's a decline in attending church, and there's an increase in the number of people who identify as nuns. Now, the nuns could include atheists, but they could also include people like my parents who just don't affiliate themselves with a church. And so we've also seen COVID's kind of a tough one, though, because there's a lot of people who haven't gone to church because of... No, there's a lot of people who haven't gone to church in late, so it's hard to measure church attendance in the last 2 years. You have to kind of go before that, to be fair.
Yeah, no, I would put that under a non. A non is somebody
there's a problem as soon as you say religiosity, because you're including everything. And if you look at out east, you run into theocracies. And when you start running into theocracies, you start seeing a huge uptick.
Right.
Well, I think still overall, go ahead.
In Europe, but it's on the rise, I believe, in South America and Africa. So secularism is growing in the U.S. and Europe, and Christianity is declining.
I don't know if we really want to go down the rabbit hole of talking about the Christian influence on South Africa. I don't think that will go in your favor.
William Peterson, $5 says, why isn't the empirical evidence of a God left by a creator if we can be atheists in good faith and be punished by said conclusion? And this kind of goes back to what V was saying, though. Why isn't there more empirical evidence that people can say, look, yeah, God wants to know he exists. This is the evidence for it. And of course, there's obviously people that have their argumentation. There's obviously appeals to natural theology. There's also, logical arguments that people try to argue for God. But don't you think God makes it very, very difficult? I mean, back 2,000 years ago, he seemed to be all over the place. Everybody knew there was a God. He was everywhere. He walked with people. He talked with people. He sent, all these miracles and floods and catastrophes, which, by the way, we don't seem to see nowadays. God's relatively silent on all that stuff. But as Cheshire was pointing out, if we got rid of all the Christianity side of it and just kept the our societal things for atheism as in, hey, look, we're going to develop our own way of living our lives and everything like that. Because again, we're not talking about any kind of afterlife, but as William Peterson said, and punish for said conclusion, the atheist doesn't have to worry about the punishment of said conclusion, or at least to them, it's a non-issue, right? Because to them, they're not looking at the metaphysical aspect. They're looking at the secular aspect. So can't just people be in good faith, live their lives, have secular humanism develop later on the line, get rid of all Christianity, get rid of all religion, because that would follow. Well, if everybody
can I answer that?
There'd be no religion. There'd be religion and atheist religion, but there's no a divine religion. So yeah, go ahead.
So I would just say that if you have kind of a bargaining chip when you have a belief in God, a common belief in God that's shared by world leaders. And so if the world leaders have that idea in their mind that they are going to be held accountable for their actions, a lot of the actions that they would do would probably be more in line with trying to value individual rights, value people, give individuals rights. Instead, atheism, if people believe in atheism, they're kind of delusional by thinking they have some importance, or they just think they have no importance. But the ones who think they're important are just sort of, we're really just specks on a planet in the third rock from the sun in this little obscure galaxy in the middle of the universe. We're really nothing for the atheist view, but we feel as a Christian we have value. But the reason I want to point out the world leaders, you've got somebody like Xi Jinping over there in China, who right now has locked up 1.8 million Uyghurs, ethnic Muslims, and they're raping them, they're torturing them, they're trying to, they forcibly sterilize these people, they're trying to breed
you say the that
Muslim
the Christians
faith right out of them.
Didn't do that to the Native Americans.
It's because they're...
No, the Christians under the doctrine of discovery did a terrible job with the Native Americans.
So those who were justifying about whether or not you're going to do righteous things as a leader.
The thing is as a political leader, my point is that when you're telling people if they're doing right from wrong, if you've got the Christian views, you can bargain with people saying this is the wrong action. We'd be able to bargain with Xi Jinping because we could call on a higher moral accountability.
Do you mean bargain with other political leaders, or do you mean bargain with the people that are under you?
So I'm talking about, well, it could be both.
Okay.
So
So
this is
you
the
could
exact same
appeal to
arguments
a
that were
higher
made to justify conquest and Christian nationalism. I mean, these are the same arguments that were made to wipe out the Incans and the Aztecs, and this is. I mean, it's better for them.
It was better.
Jim, I'm saying those were wrong that they did that then. They were not following the Bible to its... I mean, the people who are slave owners who actually ripped out portions of the Bible because they wanted to justify slavery to people, those they were doing the wrong thing. We've got a lot of terrible players through history, sure.
But actually, what you're saying is that it's better if everyone was Christian, because then world leaders would agree. That's the same argument that was made to justify these conquests. The exact same argument. It's because
that's true. That's
they
a good
thought
point.
they were doing, because they thought in the end they were doing the right thing. That by spreading the word of God forcibly, they were doing the right thing because they were encouraging, harmony between them to make everybody Christian, because to make a better world. And that's their better world.
I will take that point. You have a very good point with what people were doing, especially with what they did with the Native Americans. I've had 2 Native Americans on my channel talking about the doctrine of the discovery and the horrible things Christians did, and under the name of
it was definitely a utilitarian type argument and Machiavellian, that we know best for you, and we're going to impose our viewpoints on you because we know better, because you're the native and the you're uncivilized, and we're civilized culture. We're going to come in and we're going to educate you, and we're going to help you out to get civilized, and the way to do that is because God. 8.5 pounds says religiosity status. Maybe this was religiosity status in the world depends on whatever's happening in China. Do they get more religious? I think not. But again, those types of societies where religion is more enforced is a whole different breed.
China has its own religion. It's not like China has no religion. It's not like China is atheist. China has its own.
Find out the stats on China. Only 19% of people admit that they have any belief other than atheism in China.
There was a huge issue when it came to the West going to, and I don't know if calling it colonization is quite correct, but when they basically were discovered by the Western world, and the crazy amount of enforcement of Western culture onto Eastern peoples. And it skewed their entire religious everything. All of it. Their whole religion was basically just all over the place by the Western world.
Which countries? Be specific.
China, Japan specifically.
Okay, so when did we skew China's values and take away anything from China? When did that happen?
When the Western world got there. I'll pull up hold on, let me pull up the actual date.
But
go ahead.
Manya for New Zealand.
She's basically right.
But these places that Christianity went to, that Christianity colonized for Christianity, before they did that, a child raised in the middle of Asia, people raised in African tribes, isolated peoples in South America, before those conquests, they still considered murder against their morals for the same reason that every other ancestral tribe did, because they're conducive to building a successful cooperative community. They built communities without Christianity. They built cohesive communities with moral codes without Christianity. It's just not necessary.
Well, let me just build on that back to my China idea, because China, let me just explain something really quickly. If you read people like Francis Fukuyama, who's done a very detailed investigation into China, you're going to find out the way that China has organized its government. It's all about the state. It's communism, and it's all about and communism. Marxism stems from the atheist philosophy. So, but the idea is communist. Everybody is. Listen to me for a second. Listen to me for a second. People do not have individual value under communism. You don't have property rights under communism. You're not given the kind of rights, and you're not all of the other societies. One of the things that Christianity differentiated us, and you can also see Tom Holland's Dominion book on this, but one of the things that Christianity differentiated was this idea that all men are created equal. Okay, we're equal under the eyes of God. And so, neither as St. Paul said, neither slave nor free, Jew nor Greek, we're all equal under the eyes of God. And so Christianity extended that into our legal system, and that's one of the reasons why men and women now can operate very effectively and evenly.
Real quick, Manya for $2 New Zealand says, "Can bargain be?" We're going to get back to you, by the way. Can bargain with political leaders using trade? Yeah, probably some sort of bargaining. Yeah. And William Peterson, $2. Isn't communist dogma practically religion? Yes, I do think it is. But I think communism is a form of to me a religiosity. But you made a statement that I think that we all jumped on, right? Because you made a statement, SJ, that we can't let go, because you had said, and I'm sure this was what you meant. I'm not trying to straw man, but your argument was communism is part of atheist philosophy. Was your words, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Karl Marx is an atheist. Marxism, there's many atheist underpinnings to Marxism.
Hang on. So what? Jim's an atheist. He's not a communist. But I mean,
but Marxism is a philosophy.
But Marxism is a philosophy. You said
atheism isn't a philosophy. We're not arguing a Marxist society versus a Christian society. That's not the argument.
Yeah, I mean, our atheism is philosophical. Whether it's philosophy or not is irrelevant. But
1 second,
atheism,
please. Craig, do you mind dropping and coming back in, because we keep getting you in like snippets and you keep cutting out. So maybe if you leave and load back in, we'll be able to hear you a little bit better.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it cuts out. It's like pause.
Love you.
Pause.
Nobody could believe gods don't exist before Karl Marx. I don't know if you guys knew that or not.
Nothing about atheism even remotely is constitutive to it to imply or to entail any form of political agenda, including communism or Marxism. There's nothing about atheism that has any implicature to it. None. If you have a citation for it, I'd love to read it. But I'm talking about, how does the belief, if I say, look, there's no God, it's just going to lead me to communism, how do you get a political view from that? That's politics. There's no way you can derive that. You just can't.
I'll give you the citation. So Cleon Skousen, he was a government operative in the 1940s and 50s, and he wrote a book called The Naked Communist, and he details exactly how Karl Marx's ideas were infused through atheist Marxist ideas were infused into many societies.
You did say, but you just changed from atheist philosophy. Hang on.
Let's talk about how Hitler used Catholicism.
I have a question.
Okay, but mine's going first.
It's a very easy question.
Okay.
Do you have to be an atheist to be Marxist?
Pretty much, yeah.
So yes.
Do you have to be a Catholic to be a Nazi?
Single other. Oh, Jim, say it again, Jim.
Do you have to be Catholic to be a Nazi?
Well, he certainly didn't think that he was under the authority of a Jewish carpenter, did he?
Are you sure?
I'm sorry, that wasn't what I asked.
He was Catholic.
Hitler was definitely not. Hitler was a pantheist.
No, he was Catholic. But that's been pretty well established.
Not only Catholic.
Okay, but even if he wasn't, do you have to be Christian Catholic to be a Nazi?
No, Nazis aren't Catholics.
So Nazis.
There were.
Okay, so
some Catholics could be Nazis.
You have to be an atheist to be a Nazi.
No, to be a Marxist, to follow Marxist philosophy, you're an atheist. Okay, that's just how it works.
Why?
That's not true. It is not true. That is so not true. Well, what about Marxism says that you have to be an atheist? What is the rule? Where does it say that anywhere?
Can you be an atheist and not be a Marxist, or is SJ calling Jim Marxists?
we need to get
Mosh. No. You can easily be an atheist and not be a Marxist.
So I'm saying if you're a Marxist, so it's not reliant.
No, what I'm saying. No, listen to me. I'm saying if you're a Marxist, if you follow the Marxist philosophy and principles, you are an atheist. But if you're an atheist, you don't have to be a Marxist. There's lots of atheists who aren't Marxists.
Marxism is a political theory.
So are you saying that there are no Marxists?
What's that?
So you can't be religious and be Marxist? You have to,
right.
Yeah, why? I'm looking at Marxism. I don't see it as being a condition.
I could go get. This isn't the whole angle that I really wanted to take tonight so much, but I ended up getting into it. But there's a lot of information again in that book I referenced, Cleon Skousen's Naked Communists, and I could do quotations, but I'd have to run downstairs to go find the book.
No, that's fine. That's right. But you see what you did though. You moved something. Okay, let me tell you what you did here. Manya, New Zealand, $2. Hitler was baptized Catholic. Yes. William, 5 Australian, 1 hour, and we hit Goodwin's Law. Well, yeah.
Godwin's Law, Steve.
Godwin's Law.
Okay,
Godwin's.
please. Somebody. Side announcement. Quick announcement. The Non-Sequitur Show Discord will be available for Happy Birthday to Steve on his birthday.
I'm getting to our Discord admin with this weekend to finish the final touches.
For his birthday.
It's gonna be 76,
which is
yes,
which is Discord. Also,
Kyle's lawyer $2.
I didn't have anything to say. I was fine.
Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
No, it's okay.
Kyle's lawyer $2 got mint Udens, which was on the belt buckle for all the SS.
We know where
right. They inherited
Steve's
that from World War One.
We know where
Hitler used Christians. I mean, Hitler was one of the things. He was a very charismatic leader, and he was able to convince a lot of people to do horrific things, which is disgusting. But he capitalized on people's Christian beliefs and pretended that he was part of that whole movement. But when you actually look at what his true beliefs are, and you read Mein Kampf, you can see that he didn't think he was going to be eventually judged by a Jewish carpenter.
Maybe he was. Maybe if he
Jewish people.
Yeah, and by the way, if he got, it is the case if Hitler asked for forgiveness, he would have been judged, and yeah, he was still saved. But finish. What were you saying about the Discord for my birthday?
Oh,
Josh?
That somebody needs to do me a favor because we have 2 things that we're working on. If you have a favorite moment of any of the non sequitur videos that have come out, after Kyle, send me the timestamp, and I will be putting together compilations at the end of the month. So
cool.
Do that.
Oh, Craig, you sound better now.
Hey, Craig.
Yeah, really? Yes. Inkboy, £2. There's Godwin's Law is the one for communism, probably. If you were listening to Voss or Destiny, yeah, you cannot go a single episode without hearing the word Marxist or communist.
The problem is that it does not seem to be the case that you have to. I don't understand why. I don't understand why you have to be an atheist to be a Marxist. I'm not sure what the difference
it would actually be against Marxism. It would actually be against Marxism. Marx was for like individualism. I mean, it would be completely against his whole philosophy.
He wasn't for individualism. He was for taking away individual rights.
Well, I mean, I would say that.
I mean, people had their property taken away under Marxism. Look at the philosophy and what it did to USSR. Read Solzhenitsyn's book, The Gulag Archipelago.
I'm
seriously.
Okay,
perhaps I'm confused.
What they're arguing is that like Jim, for example, is not a communist because he's an atheist. So there's nothing intrinsic. Like
I never said Marx,
that. Right, I know, but that's kind of what they're.
You're
sort of
is that
riding
reversed?
a thin line.
We're not understanding why all Marxists have to be atheist. Why they can't be anything else.
Right.
Whatsoever.
There are Marxists who would call themselves Christians. I think there's some who have channels out actually who we know. But the argument that could be made that Steve was starting to make is that when you strip away religion, communism is a type of replacement religion. So that's
fine. That I cannot disagree with. That would be.
Right. Well, we're not arguing communism versus Christianity,
but I still want us to point out.
Right. No, I know.
So would removing atheism, to get back on topic, would removing atheism remove Marxism by that logic?
No, but SJ said something very specific.
Maybe.
She didn't say the result of Marxism is atheism. She said she said very specifically because of atheist philosophy, then Marxism. She had it completely backwards. If you want to argue Marxism and then out of Marxism there's some kind of theoretical atheistic viewpoint because of that, sure, there's a good argument for that. Doesn't necessarily mean the case. Marxism, from what I understand it, doesn't say you must be atheist. There are consequences because of Marxist political and sociological viewpoints that might become atheism, right? But it's not it's something that must be the case. But your argument, SJ, was that Marxism stems from atheist philosophy. That makes no sense.
It stems from Marx's atheist philosophy, not from atheist philosophy, from Marx's atheist ideas. That's what I'm saying.
Marxist atheist, what is that?
Well, Karl Marx
Yeah.
famously thought that religion
he
was
was-
the opiate
he-
of the masses.
Yeah,
He was
yeah.
trying to
and he was
start a
humanist.
workers'
Yeah.
paradise where the
Yeah.
means of production was going to be owned by the workers. And part of his doctrine was, in fact, that religion was standing in the way of his workers' paradise because some of the things that you guys have argued, that it puts people's faith in a life to come and not enough faith in this world.
That's not atheism.
No,
Saying
I
that
understand.
religion
I'm just
is
saying-
problematic
I'm just saying
can
the time.
be said by any religion whatsoever
I
and any
totally
non-religion
understand.
whatsoever.
And it hasn't been
Right?
used in any expression of Marxism.
I was just
Well,
explaining the time. I'm not.
Was
Yeah,
one of the
but-
requirements Marxism, God does not exist? The
No.
belief that God does not exist? I don't
Now,
recall
but
that
the-
being a
no,
Well, the
it's
requirement.
argument, the
No, it's
argument
not.
would be going like the argument would be like this: if Marxism's position, right, is that Craig's exactly right. They held that man himself, we are the supreme being. There is no supreme being of the universe. Man himself, from a humanistic point of view, is the supreme God. Okay, the supreme being. So if we're the highest thing, is in the individual self, the human. That means there is no God by entailment because if we're the highest thing there is, that would imply there is nothing higher as far as a metaphysical being called a God. There is an implicature there, but these are derivative of the Marxist philosophy. They're not incorporated as part of mandated by the Marxist philosophy. Right. That's the way I understand it. Craig, is that making a lot more sense?
Yeah,
that way?
I mean, it's Marx wrote a book, and you can be a Marxist purist, or you can be a Christian Marxist. You know, it's like anything else. You can pick and choose what you think. But yeah, that's exactly what he said is exactly right. And the only tie-in is that Marx argued that religion was standing in the way of his workers' paradise. So in the ideal Marxist state, there's no religion because the workers are so satisfied and it's replaced by, and communism has a lot of pseudo-religious attributes. When it's practiced by a state, it becomes like almost a state-sponsored religion. It's very similar, it's very similar to a state religion. But other than that,
like Kim Jong-un, you worship him.
You what?
No, that's not what they're saying.
Yeah, that's not what we're saying. She is not wrong,
else
but
isn't atheism,
that's
though.
kind of relevant. Yeah.
Right. So, like, even if let's say, I mean, I've heard some kind of extreme Christians, which I don't think is like you guys, obviously, because you guys have 2 brain cells. But I've heard people be like, "Well, atheists."
I can debate that. Okay.
All right, vote, chat. I need you to vote. One in the chat if you think.
V said they have 2 brain cells. Listen what V said. You have 2 brain cells. Craig has one and SJ has the other.
Oh, that's not nice. I like our guest today.
That's what she said.
Fun.
That's what she implied. Just kidding. That's not true.
Rude. Being thrown under the bus.
I'm just saying that someone's going to imply that. Someone's going to imply that. Look at the way V is cheating her Christian guest.
Okay.
Okay,
I think you guys are intelligent, kind people, so I don't expect that I would hear either of you saying this, but I have heard that, like, atheists just worships blank, fill in the blank. So sometimes it's money, and sometimes it's self, and sometimes it's good, whatever. But if they're worshipping something, then it's not really how atheism works. It's belief in not a God. So there no God exists.
You can worship anything you want. Hey, look, there's no God, but I'll worship
but
this,
is it worship if you don't consider it divine?
My cup.
Right? So like that's a whole nother question. But if we're getting back
on
track, would removing, I mean, it seems to be the consensus was no, but would removing atheism remove Marxism?
No. There would be Christians who would become Marxists. There are Christians who are Marxists. The idea of like the state, workers taking over the state and controlling the means of production is probably going to be around no matter what. Because it's a utopian fantasy.
Right.
So we can stop talking about it.
Well, I mean, we are talking about a utopian fantasy as if the world was going to be, and again, we're looking at it from an axiological point of view, right? We want to know the value of, is it better to have a world that everybody believes in the same type of God, Christianity of some kind, that Christ is the risen Lord, Son of God, or is it better to have a society where everybody says, look, God doesn't exist. Now let's go do our thing and focus on what we need to focus on in science. We need to focus on each other and developing a social structure that we can adhere to, where we have a flourishing and unimoidia. To me, that seems a little bit more having no more credence because it strips away everything the religion has, because you don't need the organized religion. If God exists or not, it's like completely irrelevant to what an atheist will say. An atheist can look and say, yeah, look, you don't exist. But if he does, he's looking back going, yes, I do. But it doesn't matter. The society that exists at the time is still going to have a society that's going to have laws. It's going to have rules. It's going to have morality. Morality is not contingent upon some metaphysical being existing. If that was the case, and if God ceased to be, which hypothetically, obviously, metaphysical being can't cease to be, but you cannot say, hey, if this physical being ceased to exist, would certain things disappear? Would morality go away? Would A not equal A any longer? I can't see that as being rational. I cannot see that being rational. If you say, look, if this being wasn't here, we would not have morality, because what you're saying is that morality is so contingent upon this being that just because he exists, we should do this. We have an ought. That makes no sense to me. Why you would have an ought from that? We have an ought because it's the right thing to do, because we have to get along in society. That's why we have is and oughts.
As soon as you have sorry, I can hear myself. As soon as you have a society, you have rules.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
That's true.
No matter what.
Yeah. It's a
So how long are we going? I just want to figure out, because I want to...
5 hours.
Forever. You're trapped here. You live here now.
Please no.
Yeah.
Please no. I'll make it like maybe.
Until I'm done this.
Yeah, 5 o'clock. So we started we started a little late, obviously, but we can go to the 15 minutes at 5 o'clock or whatever. Is that fine?
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that. Pacific. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
So
found one
all right,
in
so it's kind of
fridge.
So on that note, then, so SJ, tell us why you think based upon our argumentation that if everybody said, hey, look, gods don't exist, why you say, hey, look, we all should say God exists, and this is why, because reasons.
I think if you look at number one, you could look at the value of intrinsic religiosity and how it helps people's health. It's less levels of depression, lower levels of suicide. There's a number of meta-analytic studies that point to that. So you've got a lot of beneficial health outcomes from intrinsic religiosity. And then, and you also have, so that's just speaking to the health outcomes. You also have people giving more. The Pew research has found that, or is it Pew? Yeah, it's Pew that's found that religious people tend to give more. They volunteer more. There's a lot of other good outcomes in society, like religious people setting up schools or setting up hospitals. Through the centuries, religious people have helped with arts and sciences. You can see religion infused through the centuries through Christianity. And it's just something that's helped us establish building blocks of our society that give all individuals value, and women are given value. And so there's just you look at how women are treated in the West versus how they're treated in other parts of the world. And we've got it really good here versus, say, the Arab world and even places like Japan. And so...
No, Japan. What happened to women in Japan?
Oh, we're going to go another hour now, guys.
Okay.
Lot to unpack there,
Jim,
wow,
Jim's
just a bomb in there.
Jim fell away. Goodbye, Jim.
We had lost a Jim accident. Jim, we need you.
Okay. Hold on. Women
I think
have
Jim might want to
better,
respond.
And...
in Western societies, yes. Women have it better in Western societies.
Because of Christianity? And because of old school Christianity or new school Christianity?
No, it's
because
if you look at
Jesus, take the wheel. Take the wheel, Jesus.
I'm not ready to say that myself.
Jesus elevated women.
No, when?
Jesus
Where?
helped. Jesus
elevated the woman that washed his feet.
That's elevating a
Jesus
woman. Yeah, wash my feet, woman.
He had Mary. He had friends who were women. Mary, Martha.
Oh my God!
Mary Magdalene.
Can't be misogynist. He had friends who were women.
No, but he also women were the first to discover the empty tomb. So
I have a female
women were certainly given an elevated status.
That says something.
I'm
sorry,
okay.
That is kind of funny.
No, but let alone like women are better off in Western society than they are in the Arab world. Because
you don't think so?
Well, I don't think so.
You seriously don't think so?
Yeah, because if you take Christianity and line it up day to day with the inception and where it is, Christianity was doing the exact same thing to women. You have to have your hair long. You have to have your hair covered. You have to be wearing this. You have to be doing that. You have to be subservient to your husband. They were doing the exact. You were getting stoned.
They're subjugated.
If somebody thinks that you had
That's
sex
not
with
under
someone
Christianity.
else. Yes, the fuck it is.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. That's the Judea. That's under Mosaic law. Christians have never had to live under Mosaic law, Chesh.
Are you saying that Jesus never mentioned stoning people?
People were stoned under Christianity. In fact, Stephen was stoned under.
Okay.
Did
Did
Jesus
ever say that you shouldn't stone people?
People didn't. We don't have any evidence of stoning. Let me explain what's going on in the Arab world. I mean, Chesh, maybe you don't know this, but it was up until a few years ago, women did not have the right to even drive a car in Saudi Arabia. Women do not have the right
it
in
wasn't
Afghanistan to go to
decades ago that
school.
women had the right to vote in America.
Yeah, I said our rights have grown, but a lot of it is stemming from Christianity.
Are you?
No, Christianity hindered
because
them.
a lot of it
Are
in
you
Christianity.
familiar?
Without Christianity, do you think that
Absolutely
women
not.
would maybe have a better chance of voting earlier?
Are you familiar with the Arab world in the 1950s and what it was like before the institution of religion
lot better than
into
now.
the government?
Women had a lot more freedom.
I'm telling you, the Arab world, if you go back and you just look at it, even recent times, but you could go back and look at just what's going on there. It's women are mistreated. Women can't go to the same schools as men in many places. They're not given the same levels of education.
Have you?
What are you? Wait, can I ask a question?
The Arab world
Because I'm confused about two things. Are you saying, Chess, that like let's say the 50s in Egypt, where you see those pictures where Egypt was relatively liberal society, that women were actually treated good, or what?
No,
so
I'm
what,
saying
what are you
that
saying?
if you were to line them, okay, so two main things have happened. One, the Muslim religion in the Arab society, I don't know if that's appropriate, but whatever. We're going to call it that for now. We're all adults here. So, well, then I have to move this so I don't hear myself. So if you take Muslim culture and you take like Muslim religion and you look at the age, how old it is and how long it's been around, and you match the age of Christianity to it. So you line them up age-wise side by side. So here's its inception.
Oh, so like Muslims
here's
been around for 600 years.
Here's its inception.
600 years.
Here's 100 years. And you compare
1400.
where they're at and how they're treating people at those times. You will be probably not surprised to see that they are very, very close.
There's a corollary. Okay, that's an interesting point.
Additionally,
Actually,
if you go ahead and you look at what changed politically in Eastern, there's an Islamic State. And the thing is with an Islamic State was the creation of theocracy. And what is
radical
theocracy?
Islam, right.
Oh, well, it's when the religion takes over the government. Interesting. Funny thing that it wasn't Christian values that changed anything in America. It was the lack of a theocracy.
So, Cheshire, do you think?
Well, I mean, if we look at Afghanistan right now, I mean, the Taliban are doing a great job, building a society that's gripped by religious dogmatism. Like that's religious dogmatism. Like that's
what they do. Right.
What
that's
a country run by religion looks like.
Sure, but Chess, do you think that it was because of the weakening of Christianity that they say that Christianity has been weakening the family structure and all this other stuff and all these arguments that Christians make that over the last 40, 50, 60 years like that, there has been a loss of societal structure that has been diminishing from Christianity. But because of those things, we also have had more rights for women than we've ever had, more rights for minorities than we've ever had. There seems to me, now again, correlation doesn't mean causation, but there seems to be at least a minimal amount of relationship to make the argument that as religiosity goes down, human rights go up.
I will say beyond a shadow of a doubt that, in my opinion, I believe that the Christian Bible, the King James Version, the New Testament version, is not pro-women.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think what Stephanie was arguing is that it was pro-women, given the culture that produced it. It was way more pro-women. I'm not into cultural
relativism.
How?
No.
What?
No.
So what?
Well,
yes, it was.
She's trying to work the argument out, but she's saying like.
But Craig,
if you look at the
what?
No,
Craig,
listen,
Craig,
let me go back. If you go back to the early church and you go back to St. Paul and how he was traveling around with Phoebe and Lydia and Priscilla and other women
See?
who were elevated in the church, in some
Chicks were on
cases were
board.
deaconess. So they had a lot of women were
Practically-
recognized in very
practically
positive
pro-choice
ways. Sometimes they
college.
were funding the church.
Wait, hang on.
It's practically
Hang on,
a
hang
And
on.
women
Hang on.
Oh, geez.
First of all, we'll do these super shots in a second. But first of all, Craig, you guys are arguing from an objective viewpoint that there's a God that exists. You can't all of a sudden defer to cultural relativism and say, well, this was the times and places of the culture.
I'm saying
and
what
just
she's
let me
arguing.
finish.
I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't bring
Let
it
me
up.
finish.
I'm
You can't.
clarifying her.
Hang on. You cannot say then. Oh, well, for the time these most of the women were subjugated. They were not allowed to speak in churches. They were treated. You know, they would have tests done to see if they had adultery. They would have their hands chopped off or their breasts chopped off if they had something wrong. None of that matters because let me finish. None of that matters because we had a couple instances of a few women. Oh, but they were treated okay. These couple women were treated okay, but never mind the other women that were under the Christian law for the first couple of centuries that still had subjugation.
The very
because it
beginning
wasn't
of
until
the
that went
Bible
away they lost
throws
that.
women below men right from the beginning. Unless you're going to tell me that Genesis and the creation of God doesn't matter to Christianity.
It started off that way, right?
Blow my mind.
I mean, this whole started off that women were inferior to men, biblically speaking. Was that not the case, SJ?
If not inferior, because you might have somebody who may argue and say that, hey, listen, just because women were put in a position below men didn't make them inferior, it just made them subservient.
I wouldn't go with that rule. I go with Genesis 1:27, where it speaks of God's value and how he made man, he made women in his image. Okay, he didn't say he just made man in his image. He said he made man and woman in his image, and that's really important.
He made woman for man.
In our
well, women have a different role. So it goes Christ
in men in the hierarchy, right?
In the hierarchy, yes, it goes Christ,
so yes,
then the man, then the woman.
Below men.
No, women just have different roles, though.
But you just said that
Maybe
they're lower in the
Can
hierarchy.
women ever be
position.
between men and Christ?
It's not like a triangle. It's
Can they?
the order of the order according to the Bible is Christ, then the man, then the woman.
Okay.
So
It's
so
just
the
that women
idea-
have
Can
different
every
roles.
Christ and
Below
woman and the
men.
man?
So
Okay, well,
so
then-
SJ, can a woman ever be above a man in that lineage?
It depends on what sort of roles
No.
women are given. Okay, so women are given different roles.
Oh,
Women
wait,
are the
wait.
Come on, SJ. Come on, SJ.
So wait a minute. If that's the case, and you're circumventing God's plan because God has it set up. Oh, church, God, the Son, man, and then women. This is from the beginning, and you're saying
the beginning
you
doesn't
That's it.
count because that's in the Mosaic law, Steve. The Mosaic
you
law
can
doesn't
get around
matter.
that. You can get around that if you give women certain responsibilities. So you're saying that whole lineage that God set up is.
But that would still be special pleading because
God set up a patriarchal lineage. That's true.
But that
Yes,
he set up a patriarchy.
Okay.
We
Argument.
true.
We
That's
all
it.
agree
Let's
with you
argue
on
the
that.
argument.
Yes,
Yeah.
we all do agree with you.
I don't
on
have a
that.
problem
That's
with
the
it.
point.
Wait, I have a question.
I don't have a problem with it one bit.
Well,
I have a question for
that's the
Craig and
problem.
SJ. You said earlier that Mosaic law is not applicable, and we're working with New Testament. Does that include?
What I'm saying is Christians
hierarchy.
are under the new covenant. Christians are under the new covenant. Okay.
Okay, so
That's-
Is there a
hierarchy-
patriarchy in the
So
new
when-
covenant?
So I look to the new covenant when I want to know what to do. If I'm going to make a judgment, I go to the New Testament, the new covenant, what Jesus had created
not
for
true.
us,
Okay,
and how his
but
kingdom is operating now.
is there still a patriarchy under the new covenant? Is there still lineage are still
Yes,
the same?
you'll
or are
find
men
that
and
in the
women
New
considered
Testament.
equal? Oh, okay, we agree with you on this.
We're
Okay,
all
so
equal.
let me read these out.
No.
Yeah.
St. Paul said, no,
No,
listen to me.
wait.
Listen to me, Jim. I don't mean Jim. I mean, Steve, listen to me. Paul said we're all equal. Man,
You don't have to
woman,
listen to
all
you.
that.
He's
We're
a
all
man.
equal.
They don't have to.
No, but listen to me.
I'm turning Christian. I like this. I
Sorry,
like
go
We're
ahead.
equal in value
Yeah.
to God, okay? Neither slave nor free, nor man nor woman. We're all equal in the eyes of God. That's what Paul said.
Except that
So
we're
the
not
structure that
talking
God
about
set up
equal?
is patriarchal, but we're
not-
still
we're
equal.
not- But
I have a
SJ, we're not
question.
talking
Are Christians
about
and
value.
atheists
We're-
equal?
well, hang on. We're not saying that. We're not trying to say that. Look, here's a man, here's a woman. The souls are equal to God. We're saying is that the God has set it up from the beginning, and even in the new covenant, that man is always going to have a higher authority, meaning that women are going to have lesser power in the structure. Correct? Always, no matter what, how much power you give a woman, a man will always be higher in that lineage. Correct?
It's not a power structure. That's not the point of it.
It's not. It's absolutely a power structure. As definitive a power structure as you get. Okay, I have to read these super chats.
If a woman cannot talk to Jesus.
Oh my goodness.
Of course a woman can talk to Jesus. Of course she can.
Okay, but you
can a
just
woman be a
said
priest?
that it went Jesus, man, women, and women could
That's
not
the order,
get to Jesus.
right?
Right?
That's the order of the church. That's how the church is structured.
Through a man or husband.
So you have to go through a man to get to Jesus, right?
Not necessarily. No, that's not how it works. Mary and Martha were talking to Jesus personally. Mary Magdalene discussed things with Jesus. Mother Mary
talked to an angel.
through Jesus.
When did Mary talk to Jesus besides like after he was born?
Mother Mary?
Yeah.
Huh?
You don't think Mother Mary had communication with Jesus?
On Earth, but that hardly counts, right?
Not before his birth.
No, of course that counts. Why wouldn't that count?
When he was it counts when he was a regular, but then he was a man, and so if he was a man, they would have direct
oh my gosh.
account, but when he's not a man,
I think we need to kind of get to the end of this. This is getting out of hand.
I'm
kind of getting like
I don't really get what's happened and where we got. Can I ask a question? Because
yes,
I just want to clarify what I think Chester was saying was that the secularization of society is what has led organically to more freedom for women. Is that's
what we've all said? That's all of our arguments.
Okay.
I think.
Now let me ask a follow-up question. And I'm not one of the most famous queens of England was Queen Elizabeth. At the time, England was a deeply religious society. Now, what do you make of that?
Who are you asking?
England was a lot more Christian then than it is now. It was
it wasn't. I wouldn't say it's a progressive society.
Who are you asking?
Right, definitely not. Any of you, like
I would say probably what year did
because I think
Elizabeth,
Stephanie's trying to make a deeper argument that like, for example, there's a scripture in the Bible that says, "Submit ye one to another out of reverence for Christ," and there's a lot of examples. What?
Do you mean Queen Elizabeth the First or the Second?
The first.
Okay.
1503, I think. So deeply religious society, women take leadership roles. I'm not aware that can happen in Islam. I could be wrong about that, but like
that was
the Taliban,
the monarchy, not within the church.
Well, no, she was the head of the Church of England. She actually established the Anglican Church
in 1558 was when she was queen.
I thought it was 1503.
But there might be something like you said. There might be progressive religions out there that were Christian that are a lot more progressive. I mean, in the Anglo churches, have always been a lot more progressiveness. I mean, only until recently, certain more progressive churches have allowed gay marriage, including the Anglo-Saxon churches, but not hundreds of years ago that was unheard of, right? So there might be some more progressive, but that doesn't change the fact the way that God set up the patriarchal lineage is just his argument. And it wasn't until societal factors changed it, whatever the societal factors were. When and where, it doesn't matter.
When she was born.
Yeah.
She became queen on
1603.
No, she became queen of England and Ireland from the 17th of November, 1558 until she died in 1603.
Oh, okay. That's what I was getting over.
Yeah,
let me get these out of the way real quick because I have them on the screen. I want before we go away. Nathan Thomason, Thomason for $10 Australian. To bring it back around to Marxism, socialist healthcare systems fund more hospitals. There are more social services from governments than all religious charities, and that you don't need don't need Marxism, but socialized medicine is pretty well established in a lot of places, and it does seem to work.
Stephanie's pro socialized medicine,
and I think generally speaking, I think that's the way to go. Manya from New Zealand,
Canadian.
$5. She says Christianity has had a yes.
I didn't know that.
Don't hold it against her.
Yeah, Christianity has had a monopoly and finances on such institutions for a long time. Not forget they abolished institutions set up by other religions. And Christianity does have a lot of money. These churches have a lot of, even the people that even these churches that we wouldn't expect to be Christian they're well endowed. They have monies that can go into decades in the future, even if they lost funding. They, especially the Catholic Church, billions and trillions of dollars. I mean, how much money the Catholic Church worth?
Okay, so check this out. Next
To
time
be
you
fair,
guys
we've been
are
pretty nice
knocking,
in not bringing up the Catholic Church when talking about Christianity so far.
Well, Christian churches in the U.S. are the largest group of charitable donations. They get 29% of it. It's like $126 billion a year. But
yeah, a lot of it goes to overhead too.
That's
Right. Well, 72% of that is spent on personnel and worship facilities, and which is like 30 to 50% more than other charities. And only 2.8% is spent on outreach and humanitarian aid. Only 2.8% of all donations, while there's 500,000 homeless people on any given day in the U.S. It's crazy.
So I want, before we have to go, I want to read. I was going to read these real quick because SJ, you were, because the topic is very specific on Christianity, and so I just wanted to go over these real quick with you. I know you're pressed for time, about what some of the Christians' core values are, and why if there's a society of all atheists, would it really matter? So each one, and all you need is tell me if this is a Christian value or not. The first one, ready? And this I think would be the foremost one: love God, or love God with all thy heart. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
yes,
Yes, absolutely.
Would it make a difference if atheism was the predominant thing, or even completely, if everybody said there was no gods? Love your neighbor as yourself.
That's number two. But I can say, does it make a difference? Love God above all else.
No.
What does that mean? It's the idea of loving God more than yourself. And the atheism,
No,
the
I
idea
get
is
that.
a lot of times the self is a God.
Irrelevant.
So.
Absolutely irrelevant. Absolutely irrelevant. We can get rid of.
What's wrong with loving yourself?
Yeah, Jim does that he does it often. Trust me.
Just not
He
loving
sends me
yourself
notes
as
on
if
it.
you're.
Whoa.
Love God. We don't need the atheist. It wouldn't matter. Love your neighbor as yourself. This is sure, golden rule kind of stuff. Forgive others that have wronged you.
no way.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, yes.
Okay.
Well,
I think that might
Yeah,
come about
77 times or something like that.
Yeah, sevenfold. It's hit or miss if everybody believes there's no God. Some people would forgive, some people wouldn't. I'm not much of a forgiver. Certain things I will not forgive. Love your enemies. I don't think Christians do that. I think that's BS. I don't think Christians do that. I really don't. I think that's
but that's the big one though, because that's the one that if everybody practiced.
That's the one you have
the
to try.
world would be transformed politically.
See, I disagree. I think loving your enemies is detrimental to society, but we can make that argument another time. Ask God for your forgiveness of sins. Atheists wouldn't need that, right?
I think it depends
Right,
probably on how much you consider somebody an enemy and for what infraction.
Okay, well, obviously, sure.
I would call that
Jesus is the
bragging.
Messiah, but look at. I wanted to point out these are the core teachings. They're all about God. Most of these things are about God, and so it doesn't really matter. Jesus is the Messiah, was given authority to forgive others. That's a pretty standard teaching. Wouldn't matter.
Thunderbird makes a good point and says the Bible says not to charge interest on loans.
I think it's more usury, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm also pretty sure that it's only specific to some people.
Yeah, and I think it's more usury. And I think
like
the Gentile.
Your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah, but again,
would you charge yourself 15% interest on student loans?
30%, 40% usury. Jesus is the Messiah. Again, wouldn't matter. Repentance of the sin wouldn't matter. Don't be hypocritical. That one's good. Don't be hypocritical. I agree with that one, right? And so
I think that's either a complete moral failure on the part of Christianity, or that's just not true.
Well, okay, fair enough. But I mean, if everybody was atheist, don't be hypocritical would come across naturally, I think, for most people, because we recognize hypocrites are pieces of crap people. Don't judge others. Well, again, everybody does that, And the other one, the kingdom of God is near. It's not the rich and the powerful, but weak and the poor who will inherit his kingdom. Again, most of these things, the core tenets of Christianity, deal with God wanting something rather than having anything to do with how to act normatively in society, except for, again, love your neighbor and don't be hypocritical, don't judge others. But those can be, as Craig pointed out, through a humanistic philosophy that is developed over time if atheism is the predicating belief of the world. That's the way I would think. And again, I'm not specifically arguing for that, but I think that if the world were all atheist, I don't think it would make any difference as far as what we do now. I think it'd just be like, hey, look, we want to have the best for society. We want to have education. We want to have, social reform. We want to treat people with respect, with values.
I don't know if I agree with that, only because like if everybody's atheistic, it could kind of go two ways, right? It could either go into like complete implosion early on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like societies aren't even able to form because whether we like it or not, religions brought people together and gave
what I was arguing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
gave
we're gonna go over
some
that.
kind of semblance of understanding of the world around us for things very, very early in human societies. And I think it's not reasonable to discount that as if you were to remove it entirely, whether or not that would be beneficial. And I don't necessarily think it would be. Now,
yeah, I totally agree.
There's a whole
I don't think it would be beneficial.
Yeah,
definitely not.
And
I mean, it could go, like you said, I agree with you, Chesh. It could go in a really rotten way if you think about it. If everybody just starts doing their own thing and you're trying to get people to be cohesive on different ideas and they follow the law and do all that kind of stuff and do the right thing when you're not being watched.
We have an example, right? You can look at Atheism Plus and you could see the fractures that have happened within the atheist communities that are online that have completely gone to shit.
That's true.
Because they don't have any, because they're arbitrary, right? They're not cohesive.
Can I also back you up? Because in real world, Stephanie and I were part of a Christian chat group that there was two people who almost started getting into a tiff. I think you guys know one of them. And we actually started appealing to, just be merciful, pray for them, forgive. We started appealing to some of the tenets of Christianity, and it worked. They started backing off from the conflict. Now, if there was a humanism that you could appeal to that had some same sort of ground rules that you could actually say, look, this is what we believe as atheists. You can't do the XYZ PDQ because we just don't do it. Might work too. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I just think the question becomes whether has religion maybe overstepped, right? Have we got to a point where religion isn't what's needed anymore because we can have, realistically, whether we like it or not, we are evolved socially. We are social creatures, right? So we could evolve socially without more modern religions, right? So
I'm
presumably,
gonna head out.
I say maybe.
Yeah, I
gotta
got
head
to
out too.
that's other ways. All right, so let me wrap this up. So Manya for 20 New Zealand said, India before British came with Christianity abolished Indian institutions and schools, demonized transgenders and homosexuals, forced the inheritance law that if you aren't Christian, your son cannot inherit your property. That's
your son.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So
your daughter can, or just so your daughter can.
Your daughter.
Yeah, I mean,
can,
so
you can't. Your
daughter can
if you're not Christian.
Original Nielsen for Tudor Strand said Hypatia was super supported by the Christians. Sarcasm. Yeah, she was real taken care of, wasn't she? People loved Hypatia. She wasn't a gadfly or nothing.
Certainly not demonized, and Lilith is definitely existent in Christian theology.
Certainly didn't get dragged through the streets.
Yeah, naked and torn apart. Ink Boy, 5 pounds. Steve, so sorry, Chess, or are you talking? So say sorry to Chess for talking while she was interrupting you. It's there's a lot of latency in here. So
yeah, and I like I said, people might have been trying to interject on me, but I'm getting echo from myself, so I've been putting my headphones up. So if people are trying to say something, I can't actually hear them while I'm talking.
William Peterson, $5. Wouldn't an all-knowing God also not be a total douche instead of creating 2,000-year-old apologetics in the New Testament? Well, I mean, I would think that I think God can go about doing things a little bit differently if he's an all-knowing being, because again, society nowadays, society 2,000 years ago, are not the same types of societies, and I don't know why God has changed where he doesn't wouldn't have the same kind of things that he had back then. People say, well, it's the same rules. Well, no,
Well,
it really
they're
isn't.
allowed
I mean,
to have
because
positions in the church.
yeah, a lot of things have changed. I mean, gay marriage 2,000 years ago would never have happened. Never would have happened. That is a major
that's also because
change.
marriage was like an institution of the government and for inheritance, and then got adopted. Right? It wasn't really like, when did Adam and Eve get married?
Monty would like to, before we leave, Monty would like to ask Jay to at least address that whole thing about Christianity coming with India, if you could, and then we'll wrap it up.
Wait, Christianity coming with what?
When
Going into India.
When Christianity showed up into India, they implemented rules and laws that said, if you're not a Christian, your son cannot inherit your anything.
And demonized transgenders and
They
homosexuals.
did bad things in the name of
Well,
Christianity.
in India, obviously there's some
schools.
There's some bad players there, but I can say something about Christianity that has brought a positive thing to India, and it's because of my coworker who's a Hindu from India. He told me, and his wife's Christian and his kids are Christian, but he told me that one of the things that's a benefit of being a Christian in India is you can kick the caste system to the curb. The caste system is part of the Hindu religion, but if you convert from Hinduism to Christianity, you don't have to identify with the caste if you're in a low caste anymore. And he says he knows a number of people who've done that.
Right, it's
that's like
a different caste system in Christianity.
Yeah, but that's like still saying, hey, look, don't just ignore all the bad stuff. There's this one good thing.
No, I'm not saying just ignore the bad stuff.
No, it's
I'll
not
acknowledge.
Even that. It's not.
No.
One
Listen.
good thing now.
Now. Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
I acknowledge we've had bad players through history. So
some in the name of Christianity, even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, all right. So let's wrap this up.
So we should ask
Kenneth Copeland.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Blow the.
Yeah, that's a good one.
God. Okay.
Jerry
so
Falwell.
We should ask the question again to the audience and put up a new poll as soon as the stream is over to say, hey, after watching the stream, now what do you think in the poll? And we should get opinions from our panel down below, because I know my opinion has changed stance. So I think we should go through the panel and say, has your opinion changed? If not, or if it has, why not, or whatever your current opinion is now versus what it was. And if it's the same, then it's the same. That's fine. It's not a problem.
All right. SJ, go ahead. Has it changed?
No. No, my opinion hasn't
Shocker.
changed.
Jim, has it changed?
I was reasonably certain before that a society built on atheism is better than one on Christianity, and now I'm certain that the one built on atheism is better than one built on Christianity.
Okay, so you move more that direction.
Yeah.
Okay, Craig.
I'd say basically the same, but religion and Christianity is a net benefit for society overall in general. But I do think, like Chester said, I think she half articulated that it could be replaced with some type of secular humanism that had, good, intrinsic, decent values. And as for the people living in the society, that might be just as beneficial. But so far, that doesn't.
My position really hasn't changed. I do think in this particular case, atheism was the way to go, because Christianity has so many different things baggage-wise to come along with it that I wouldn't want to take the chance that I think the harms to society might be outweighing any of the benefits that, in the atheist point of view, you wouldn't have to worry about and let society fend for itself under the guise of eudaimonia and wanting flourishing for human society. And if human secularism develops out of that, I think that's a natural progression. So if I had to right now say, look, I'd rather have everybody be Christian or everybody be atheist, I'm going to go with atheist.
I'm the only one who changed? Oh, no, Jim did. Jim changed too. So the two atheists are the only ones who changed their opinion.
No, Jim just upgraded he strengthened his view.
He just doubled down on it. He didn't change it. He just got more resolved.
So Jess, you're gonna go with Christian now?
No, so I actually wasn't sure, and I thought some of the commenters made a really good point as to why Christianity might be a good idea. It's tried, it's unifying, it's got its benefits. It was I think I got my mind changed by being like, if Christianity is true, it changes nothing. So if you're an atheist and you remove Christianity and Christianity is true, then nothing changes and everybody's for the better. And you don't take along if you choose atheism and Christianity is true, you bring along none of the baggage that Steve might be concerned about, or anybody might be concerned about. I mean, realistically, I think that it's reasonable to expect a lot of Christians to be concerned about the problematic things that have happened in history, some of the problematic baggage that comes along with it, right? So realistically, atheism seems like the only option that is kind of good for everybody, unless some unknown factor is there to make atheism absolutely awful, which we were not able to demonstrate tonight. So I'm in the camp of
unless there's an eternity,
would be the best way to go, even if Christianity is true.
Unless there's an eternity.
But not according to Craig. Craig's like, well, even if there is an eternity and all that shit goes on, I still get in because Craig vouched for me.
Yeah,
right. I did vouch for her.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So now,
the thing is about eternity is outside. As far as I was concerned, eternity was outside of the question.
Guys, I really got to go.
Yeah.
So.
I
got to go too.
Yeah, let's get out of here.
All right, so now,
yeah, me too. I'm starting.
I'll do this anytime.
All right, so leave you guys with this. 2,000 years now, there's not going to be a new religion. It's based on Craig Reed. It's called Reedism.
Go, John.
All hail.
Die.
Peace.
25.
Did you say Reedism or Weedism? Because I'm down with one of those.
Those are the same thing.
Go vote.
Go
out there.
Go vote on the poll. Bye, everybody.
Bye. This was fun.